You think you're making your own choices, but the uncomfortable truth is this. Most of your life is actually being run by silent habits you don't even notice, habits that control how you think, how you move, what you delay, what you chase, and even what you believe about yourself. These quiet patterns are shaping your day before you've even realized it, and until you notice them, you'll keep wondering why life feels stuck, why your goals never quite stick, why you keep cycling through the same frustrations over and over again. You see, everyone talks about big habits, working out, waking up early, journaling, but almost no one talks about the tiny, silent habits that keep you trapped without you even realizing they're there. Like the habit of grabbing your phone the second you feel bored or anxious. The habit of overthinking until you convince yourself not to start. The habit of waiting until you feel ready before taking action, even though that day rarely comes. These aren't random behaviors, they are automatic loops you've been practicing for years. And here's the hard part. You've probably done these things so many times that you don't even question them anymore. They feel like your personality, but they're not. They're just reflexes you've never interrupted. And the worst part? These silent habits feel like comfort in the moment, but they're actually draining your life. They slowly build into a routine that keeps you busy but never fulfilled. You scroll for a few minutes and suddenly it's been an hour. You say, "I'll start tomorrow," and suddenly it's next month. You check your phone before you get out of bed, and suddenly your whole day feels hijacked. And here's what silently kills you. The more you break small promises to yourself, the less you trust yourself to show up. And confidence isn't about being loud or certain, it is built from the quiet proof that you consistently follow through. When you keep ghosting your goals, when you keep skipping the hard thing, you start believing your own inconsistency is who you are. And that's where people lose themselves, not in one big failure, but in the slow erosion of self-trust. But here's the good news. You can break this. You don't need to rebuild your entire life overnight. You just need to notice where your time, energy, and focus are silently leaking. Because life doesn't get stolen in giant chunks, it gets stolen in 5-minute distractions. And just for today, excuses, and the quiet moments when you let reflexes control you. And here is the key. Most of your life is being written in those split seconds, where you make decisions on autopilot. You reach for your phone, you skip your habit, you overthink the next step, and you don't even pause to question why. That's where the change lies, in the pause. I call these pause points. A pause point is the tiny window where you catch the habit as it's happening. It's when you realize your thumb is already moving toward Instagram and you stop yourself. It is when you feel the pull to scroll instead of starting the hard task, and you take a breath instead. It is when you feel the urge to say, "I'll do it later," and you say, "No, I'll start now." The pause point is everything, because if you don't pause, your silent habits will keep winning. They'll keep running your life without your permission. But if you can pause, you can choose. And choice is the starting point of real change. Most people miss this because they think transformation comes from big, dramatic action. But most of the time, it comes from noticing and disrupting tiny, invisible loops. It comes from catching yourself in the moment and deciding to do the uncomfortable thing anyway. And you don't have to get it right every time. You will still scroll sometimes. You will still delay sometimes. But here's the rule. You always come back fast. You always return to your goal quickly. Because most people don't stay stuck because they fail, they stay stuck because they stay gone for too long after they slip. They disappear for days, weeks, months, and it becomes harder and harder to return. But you can change that by shrinking the gap between slipping and returning. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be fast. Speed of return is what rebuilds trust. And when you trust yourself, you stop ghosting your own goals. You stop delaying your own growth. And here is another silent habit that is probably draining you. The habit of lying to yourself about time. You say you're too busy. You say you don't have enough hours in the day. But when you look closely, you'll realize you're leaking hours into distractions you didn't even plan for. The 5 minutes that turn into 30. The 10 minutes that become an hour. The scrolling, the checking, the mindless switching between tabs. These are the silent habits that slowly steal your life. And what if you stopped accepting that as normal? What if you started patching those leaks, not by becoming perfect, but by catching the pattern in real time? What if you made it a habit to say, "I slip, but I return fast. I drifted, but I'm back now. I delayed, but I'm still in the game. That's what changes your life, not waiting for perfect motivation, but building a bias for fast and perfect action. Because here's the hard truth. Motivation isn't coming. It's not what gets you moving. Action is what gets you moving. Motivation shows up after you start, not before. You're not stuck because you lack motivation. You're stuck because you're waiting for a feeling that only comes once you're already in motion. So what's the move? Start before you feel ready. Start when it's uncomfortable. Start small. Start messy. Start now. Because action creates momentum, and momentum builds belief. And belief changes everything. When you start moving even with the smallest step, you start convincing your brain that progress is possible. The fear shrinks, not because the goal got smaller, but because you got stronger. But here's the catch. If you don't move, if you keep waiting for the right moment, your silent habits will continue to run the show. They will quietly steer your life back to safety, to comfort, to the version of you that doesn't grow. And this is where most people get stuck. They wait for readiness. They wait to feel confident. They wait for more time. But the clock won't stop. Your life won't pause. You have to interrupt the loop now. You have to stop waiting for the green light. You have to move through the red. And when you do that, when you build a bias for action, you stop being controlled by your old reflexes. You stop living as a reaction to the past. You start becoming someone who moves, who chooses, who shows up. And that's where your new life starts. Not when you finally find motivation. Not when you finally feel confident. But when you finally decide to interrupt your silent habits in real time. The ones that seem so small, but shape everything. And I want you to really get this. Your life is not being shaped by the big, loud moments. It's being shaped by the tiny decisions you make when you're bored, tired, anxious, or scared. That's where your story is being written. And you can start rewriting it now. You can build pause points. You can shrink the recovery gap. You can catch yourself drifting and return quickly. You can become the person who moves instead of delays, who returns instead of vanishes, who finishes instead of flinches. And that's the real win, not perfect routines, but fast recoveries, fast returns, fast shifts. That's how you rebuild self-trust. That's how you stop ghosting your own potential. That's how you stop living life on autopilot. So what's your next move? What's the silent habit you need to interrupt today? What's the thing you've been delaying because you're waiting to feel ready? Go there. Start there. Go small. Go now. You don't need a life overhaul. You need to win the next 5 minutes. And when you stack enough 5-minute wins, you build unstoppable momentum. You build proof. You build belief. You stop living in potential and start living in proof. Because potential is a story. Proof is a decision. And your next decision can break the loop. You've got this. Now go move. I'll see you in the next one.